Okay, let's give you guys some more help with your homework. So continuing on from the previous video. In the previous video, I've shown you how you could possibly solve this. Let's look at this one here. This one here is simpler than this one here because if you look at this one here, this is going to be to the power of a complicated fraction. So if I were to give you, let's say, 3 to the power of x to the power of 3 over, let's say 7. You would break this up. There are two ways of breaking this up. You could break this up as x to the power of 1 over 7 and then to the power of 3, or you can break it up as x to the power of 3 to the power of 1 over 7, because this times this would then give you this, or this times this would then give you this. Well, if you look at this one here, this one's a lot simpler than this one here. Because, well, your job here is to find q to the power of what equals this thing here. Well, if you look at this, if I were to give you, let's say, q to the power of, let's say, to the power of 1 over 5, you see this would mean the fifth root. This would mean the fifth root. This would mean the fifth root. So when you see this in your mind, you've got to picture something times by itself 5 times to give you q. Well, you see, this fraction here is a lot simpler than this one here. This is a complicated fraction because you've got 3 over 7. Well, this one here is a simple fraction. When it's a simple fraction, if you look at this is a lot simpler than this. Well, think about it. Okay, so your job is to find out q to the power of what gives you this. Okay, and then if you look at something like, oh, by the way, this means square root. If there's no 2 in there, well, square root is, we would just write square root as this, rather than with a 2 here. If there's nothing there, it's defaulted as a square root. Okay, so hang on. How about this one here? This one here, your job is to find out a to the power of what gives you, a to the power of what gives you 1 over a to the power of 3. Again, have a guess. If you put 5 in here, it would be a times a times a times a 5 times. That's not the same as this. So try something else. Okay. And if you look at this one here, this one's it's just, well, 7 to the power of, I don't think you should put a negative number in there, because if you put a negative number in here, let's say negative 2. Well, if you get given 7 to the power of negative 2, you don't understand what it means to have a power of a negative, so you would jump to 1 over 7 squared. Well, if you're trying to solve this, putting a negative number in there would mean you're going to have 1 over something. So you see, this number is going to be very small. This number is going to be very, very big. So avoid negative, because the negative will just turn it into a 1 over something. And let's try 2. 7 to the power of 2, that's 49. Well, 49 is you can see from 7 it's getting bigger. You can see that. But this number is much, much bigger. So try 7 to the power of 3 or 7 to the power of 4 or whatever. But you might have to work it out by hand. So for this one here, I would do 7 times 7 times 7 times 7. This thing here is 49. This thing here would be 49, and by hand, just well, try with different numbers, but you've got to do it by hand, okay? Because without a calculator. So have play around with this. What else is there? And then this thing here, you notice that this is a big number. Somehow you've got to make it smaller. Well, if you're trying to make this thing smaller, you wouldn't put 125. You got to guess what goes in this square box. You wouldn't put 3 in here, for example, because it means 125 times by itself 3 times. It's going to be a really big number, but you're trying to make it smaller. So think about something else. Okay. You could try putting a negative in there. Let's try a negative. Let's say negative 3. Hang on. Let's try a negative 2. Negative 2. Well, if you get given something to the power of a negative negative 2, you don't understand what it means to have a power of a negative number. So you would jump to 125 to the, you see this thing here is going to give you a number that's going to be smaller than 1. This thing, well, putting a negative number into here might not be a good move. So play around with it. It's got to be smaller. Okay, well, think about it. Play around with it. Yeah, so play around with the whole thing. Okay, try and do the rest.